honestly, it's one of the
Okay.
greatest names of a book.
Lieutenant Colonel's book is The Deeper, The Deeper State.
Deeper state.
He's going to talk about that this week on the show.
Yes.
And then Carl Gallups' books is Gods and Thrones. And
Your brand new book.
all about a forgotten prophecy in the Word.
Oh.
And that's book. And then the Saboteurs, Tom Horn's new book with these three men helped him on this book too a little bit, right?
Yeah, they both contributed a chapter for me in here, yes.
Yeah. And a couple other people.
Yes, well, Derek Gilbert.
Yes.
Derek.
Wow.
And you write books that nobody else dares write. I'm serious. These books are in their warehouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands. Because these are the new bestsellers
Yeah.
that haven't been sold yet. This is the first moment right now. And you folks in the audience, if you don't have them, you can get them. And I've talked all three of them into staying after the show today to sign autographs for you and meet you in person. But here's the deal. These are retail in the store. These are $60 for the three of them. These three brand new, hottest books. This is what's happening now, what God is saying to us now.
Yes.
And so we're doing this for $35 for the three of them.
That's shocking.
You got to start being educated. You've got to know what's happening because it's going to shock you if you don't know.
That's it.
And Tom, you write about the Saboteurs in your book of these three books. Tell us, who are the Saboteurs? Can you start out right there?
Well, sure. And by the way, 40 years ago, something like that, when I was a pastor, I remember when David Wilkerson wrote this book, The Vision, right?
Right.
And it blew my mind. You know why? Because part of it in there, he not only talks about how Hollywood is going to become this vehicle for the saboteurs, right, to overturn American values and Christian values and all that.
Yeah.
He also says something else. So think about this. 43 years ago, whatever it was, he says there will also be an LBGT-driven agenda that will be part of this, that will be anti-church. And he even talks in there about how pastors would be ordained who are homosexual. And I just remember at the time reading this book, and I'm like, this will never happen in America? Really?
Right.
Really? We're going to
Right.
be ordaining homosexuals to ministry? And look where we are today. So the vision that he saw was very clear. It was absolutely right. And now we're living in that moment. Well, anyway.
But the good thing is, you don't kick your writers out when they write stuff like that.
Right.
This man lost his ordination because you don't know that, do you? The church kicked this man out, basically.
Church was wrong and he was right.
What?
I said, and the church was wrong and he was right.
Right.
All I'm saying is we need publishers.
Yeah.
Can I say have spiritual guts? Is that wrong term probably? Intestinal fortitude? To your books really are on the edge.
We are either brave or we're crazy, and I'm not exactly sure which one we are. But I will tell you that ever since we hired Derek and Sharon Gilbert, and they agreed to come work with our team in this company, everybody now thinks I'm a genius, right? So I'm gonna ride it as long as I can. But
I learned that a long time ago. Surround yourself with smart people.
That's right.
And it rubs off. It doesn't even have to rub off. They
Right.
just give you credit.
That's right. Well, anyway, yeah, the Saboteurs. So and I have to say, I was more excited about this research than anything I've done for at least 10 years.
Really?
And it actually all kind of got the spark. It got initiated with the WikiLeaks scandals, because inside WikiLeaks we found that not only are there, the saboteurs like deep state, people, the federal bureaucrats that
Yeah.
operate in Washington,
Yeah.
D.C., and draining the swamp. I don't know if it's a swamp or a sewer, but one way or the other, it needs to be drained, right? But what we learned in the WikiLeaks is something that we as Christians have known for a long time, and that is behind, in the deeper state that Colonel Maginnis talks about, behind all of this is a shadow hand, a dark, occult, anti-Christ spirit.
Can you imagine the colonel has a book called The Deeper State?
Right.
That's beyond, that's the creature lurking beyond the deep state, right?
Wow.
Absolutely.
These saboteurs. Tell
so-
us more about the saboteurs.
Well,
The title and who
yeah.
these people.
So what I'm doing in this is I'm actually talking about the spirit, the supernaturalism. Paul said in his day, there are many antichrists in the world, but how many people understand that the United States of America was actually dedicated from its inception to bringing to the throne who we would call Antichrist? And many people in our government know that. When Roosevelt and his VP, Henry Wallace, put the Great Seal on the $1 bill, which is, of course, the world's monetary system, right? They knew. Wallace wrote in his own autobiography as Freemasons that they knew that that was a prophecy, that at some point in the future, literally the king of planet Earth would be enthroned as a president of the United States of America and bring to fulfillment the Novus Ordo Seclorum. All those prophecies, all that is on the Great Seal, it all comes from ancient occultism. The Cumae Sibyl, who was the most powerful of the prophetesses of Apollo, her prophecies that at the end of time, right, the golden age will rise again when men will be commingled with gods. This is literally what the Watchers did, the fallen angels that came down and blended human and angelic matter and created the Nephilim. She prophesies this will all come back, it will come full circle, and Jupiter will resume his reign over the stratosphere. That's why Gods and Thrones has a lot of the images on it and even includes the pagan gods along the front of there. But on earth, she said, Apollo will reign again. Why should Christians care about that? Because Paul says the Antichrist will be the son of perdition. That's the Greek word Apollo. It will be the reanimation of this ancient hostile entity. And it's right in the prophecies of the Great Seal. But this book, though, goes behind that and says, look what we just learned, right? With some of the highest placed people in the federal government practicing spirit dinners and spirit cooking and Aleister Crowley level occultism, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We just discovered it. The campaign director for Hillary Clinton, John Podesta, standing up in his private emails, of course, but holding his hands up proudly with the number 14 in one hand and a fish in the other. This is right out of necromantic Osirian witchcraft. The whole purpose of bringing about the resurrection of the god Osiris, or who the Greeks would have called Apollo.
This witchcraft that's in the world right now, the witches, we've been reading a lot about it on the news, actually. Is that in your book?
Well, it is in the book, and also, if you look at what these witches that were putting binding spells on Donald Trump.
That's right. They're saying they're doing it every day.
But notice what they said. They said it's not only to bind him, but all who abet him. That's me, you, Christianity. This is a declaration of war. They feel like they've got momentum now. They really do. Well, Hillary Clinton back in the news this week, but you know what's in her book? In her book, she talks about how she wanted to cast voodoo spells and use voodoo dolls, right? This is some pretty dark, spooky, weird stuff. Wow. And what did God do? Look, Trump is by far not a perfect man, and there's a lot of times I wish he would stop tweeting, right? Seriously. But go, I would encourage people, go back and read President Trump's inaugural speech. If you didn't watch it live, read it. He is declaring war on the deep state. He really is. And the cross-party monopoly of both the Republican and the Democrats for far too long, he says. The people in Washington, they prospered, they did better, they built their careers, and the people have been left on the sideline. And he says that stops here, and now we're giving it back to the people. That was a declaration of war, right? And that's the reason why Only days later, you have the former U.S. President Obama moves 1 mile away from the White House and sets up what even the Beltway today is calling a pseudo-third-term U.S. presidency, right? A shadow government.
Shocking what's
Right.
going on.
Has there ever been a president, maybe somebody can, that has ever left office and stayed in D.C.?
No, not like that.
It is shocking to me.
I've never seen anything like any of this.
Well,
I keep
sure.
talking about Hollywood,
Yeah.
but Hollywood won't accept our president. We've elected a president, people. Where are the intellectual people that understand how government works? You know,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you discovered so much that's in this book. I wish I had time to go months with this book, because what's happening in Washington? Why is it so hard to drain the swamp?
Well, see, look, the average person, right, elects a president. Every 4 years, we elect a president. And they think he's going to go. We elected him to do certain things. He ran on a campaign, certain ideas that the majority of Americans voted for. And we're going to send him to Washington, D.C., and he's going to accomplish whatever we send him there to do. 2.5 million employees that belong to the federal bureaucracy. Most of these people are very deeply invested in a very liberal kind of worldview. They're globalists, like both of these gentlemen thoroughly discuss in their works. The idea of building a wall and stopping the influx of illegal immigration, it goes against their worldview. Their worldview is a globalist mindset, right? So now you have all of these employees of the federal government, many of whom still have sympathies for former administrations.
Sure.
And they're not sympathetic at all to his cause. Right now, basically what many of them are doing is they're saying, we will just wait him out. We're just going to wait out. If we can't get him, if we can't have a coup of some kind, right, or a military uprising that some people are even talking about, is that going to happen, Bob? If we can't somehow get him assassinated, you got comedians from Hollywood walking around showing a severed head of Donald Trump. The kind of stuff that in the past people would have got arrested, right?
That's right.
Or the Secret
They would be in
Service,
prison right now.
They'd be in prison right now, but now they're just doing this stuff and openly advocating really for his assassination.
Yes.
They really are. Well, one of the other guys from CNN just the other day saying he would poison Donald
right.
Trump.
That's what
They're
he said.
trying to provoke something to get this guy out of office. So,
Lieutenant Colonel, in your book, you talk about the layers. There's like, did you say 3 layers in your book? Do I remember?
3 layers, Pastor. The first one is the kind of the administrative state, the bureaucracy, as Tom talks about, plus the political class, those people that we send to Congress and so forth. And they're exercising political authority. You know, we give them the power, they go forth and they give orders and things happen. The second layer are those that are exercising political influence. And you have the thousands of lobbyists, the corporations, the foreign countries, you have the interest groups, you have individuals that have deep pockets, and a host of people. And then, of course, you have the third layer. The third layer are, you know, as Tom indicated, demonic, those that are manipulating the second and the first. Now, I need to put it in context here. I have 50 years in Washington, D.C. I am coming here today. Literally, my job is in the Pentagon. I've been there for 15 years this time. Before that, I was the Vice President for Policy of the Family Research Council in Washington, so I dealt with all the policy. I spent 24 years in the military, but in the interim, my mother was in Capitol Hill. She was in the Ford White House. I saw through her, as well as through my own experiences, working national media, working with lobbyists, working with people throughout the bureaucracy, the things that I talk about in the deeper state. I have personally, my mother used to be the personal assistant to Gene Dixon.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my land.
Wow.
Yes. So I
You
have...
all know who Gene Dixon is?
with the psychic.
Can you say who?
Or maybe
No, she
some.
was a psychic, and
Yeah.
she had access to the White House. She had access to a lot of people. And I have said on this program before, I've personally met people that identify themselves as witches that are in the government. I have seen things in the government I will not talk about. But over 50 years, I've got a wealth of experience of working with the political class, the bureaucracy, the lobbyists who I know. I've been in non-government organizations. And then, of course, I've been very much involved in the spiritual climate in Washington. So, when I talk about those three layers, they're all very, very clear to me. They're all very interactive. And Washington is the heart of evil in the United States as well as the world.
Is lobbying dangerous?
Oh, it can be incredibly dangerous, especially if you're not lobbying for the right sort of issues. The Saudis, for instance, have spent billions of dollars promoting their agenda, which, of course, is the advancement of Sharia law and their radical view of the world. We've got lobbyists, of course, corporations, media lobbyists. You have lobbyists all over the place. Now, and a lot of lobbyists do come in government, and I've known a number of them. And some of them, of course, end up in the media, some in think tanks and the like. So there are a lot of people out there that have deep pockets, that have very insidious agendas, and they're pushing those agendas with people in the Hill. I've sat down, actually, when I was at the Family Research Council, I was a registered lobbyist because I'd go up there talking about family issues. And I've sat down with congressmen and senators and tried to present a cogent argument as to why they ought to support a particular bill. And they would, in confidence, they'd come back and say, I can't do that because of, contrary things. They were being pressured at home by corporations, by other interest groups and the like. So it is a cauldron of activity, a cauldron, once again, that I would say is incredibly evil. And I was hoping, and I still hope, that Mr. Trump can find the plugs to drain the swamp. That is a real swamp there, and it is filled with all sorts of swamp critters that are incredibly dangerous, and they do go after you. I mean, I've personally been, received letters threatening to take my life. And not too many years ago, one of my fellow employees at the Family Research Council was shot, and they were trying to get upstairs to kill the rest of us. And so that's the sort of environment in which we live in and work in Washington, D.C. But those three layers are very, very obvious and very clear to me.
God has literally given you the grace to be in D.C. for all these 50-plus years. I mean, the grace He's given you.
And Mother's goes back to, is it Ford's White House?
Yes.
She was in Ford's White House, and she worked for Howard Bakker. He ran the Senate.
Yes.
And, she lived, because she was a divorcee, she lived with the lady that was the chief of staff for Howard Bakker. So, in Washington, people don't kind of fade away. They kind of find a niche. And they find a think tank or they find a lobbying activity. There's a lot of activity there. So if you, just like you said, Pastor, that Mr. Obama found a new house and he has a shadow government not too far away, and you see his people on CNN and Fox News and so forth occasionally. These people find a way in Washington to embed themselves and to frustrate what's going on in Washington, which hurts the type of things that we are concerned about.
Yes, yes.
Well, I applaud your boldness and to, put your face out there before the whole world to see. And there you are in Washington, which is probably very few
These three books,
believers.
By the way, are going to put you on the edge, cutting edge of what's going on. You're going to know. You're going to be able to tell your friends and neighbors what is going on. And I think, these books, you can't get them at this price. You just can't. I don't know where they're going to be. I don't think Amazon can have them this cheap.
Amazon don't have them yet. You have them ahead of everybody. And the other thing is, for people that could afford it, this is the first time I've done this in a long time where I've said you really ought to buy these by the case if you can, and give them to everybody you know, because the information is probably the most important stuff we have published at Defender maybe ever.
Wow.
It's true. And these could be Christmas gifts for your family, but you need to get the information in their hands so they know what's going on.
Yeah.
So, on today's show, I want to jump in here with this quickly. If you get 2 sets for $70, you get a free, give me 3 more of the sets. Another set. You get 3 more books free.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
So we're giving you this many books. You get the Saboteurs collection, 2 of them, but we're going to give you 3 of them, 3 sets. That's 9 books. That's $180 retail value of what they are in the bookstores and on the wherever you go out to buy them. Okay, so that's an amazing deal. But it's time. Don't give junk this Christmas. Can I prophesy something?
Do it.
I believe before Christmas, something so major is going to happen that you're not going to want to give junky Christmas presents anymore. No. You're not going to just, well, I got to get Aunt Martha something. I got to do this. You know. No, you're going to start saying, God, I want to give something that counts.
Yes.
Amen?
Amen.
And so I want you to get these while you can and why we guarantee we'll ship them to you.
Yes.
We'll ship them to you this week. The minute you order them, the whole process is going to go. And they're just down the road. If I have to, I can go take my van down the road and pick them up at his place. You know, we're right down the road from each other. Isn't that good? But I want you to consider getting this. This is 3 for 2.
Yes.
For only $70.
That's amazing.
You're getting $180 value of brand new, hottest books in America. And you write about the secret destiny of America in your book, Tom.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by this? What is the secret destiny?
Well, that is a part of the book, The Secret Destiny of America, that takes off from a man, some people might know the name, Manly P. Hall. Is one of the most celebrated Freemason mystics in the history of America. He was a prolific writer, considered an expert, right? He was a 33rd degree Freemason. And he wrote a book called The Secret Destiny of America. And basically all he is explaining is if you look at Washington, D.C., even the layout of the capital city, that there are alchemical reasons, there are mystic reasons why not only was the city laid out the way it was laid out, but they were very sure that even in the dedicating of cornerstones for these buildings, that these all had to be done at particular times when the stars were aligned a certain kind of way, because they were trying to win back the favor of the ancient gods, the pagan gods. Wow. Most Americans don't know that as many as 44 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons of the European idea, and they were committed to a book that had been written by another occult guy called the New Atlantis, right? The whole idea was we were going to establish some place on the world where we were going to rebuild Atlantis and win back the favor of the gods, right? That we had insulted the gods in ancient Atlantis, and therefore that's why Atlantis crumbled and sank beneath the sea, and the world went into chaos, right? No, seriously, but they were deadly serious about this idea. And that's why when you look at Washington, D.C., it's laid out the way it is. You have a U.S. Capitol dome. Think of just the dome alone. You've been in the dome, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
You walk inside the U.S. Capitol dome, you look up. What do you see? It's called the apotheosis of George Washington, right? Apotheosis means to become a god. So Washington is becoming a god, the first president of the United States. Look at the heaven that he's rising into. There are no Christian symbols there. Michael the archangel isn't there. Jesus isn't there. The entire heaven is filled with pagan gods and demons, including the god Vulcan, who Manly P. Hall says is the god that fills the Freemasons' hands with the seething energies of Lucifer. So when you stand in the U.S. Capitol dome, Washington is becoming the Osiris. That's according to the official records. He's becoming what the Egyptians would call, what the Greeks would call Apollo. He's becoming the first one. And every succession of president across town that conduct a raising of Osiris ceremony at the Hera Dome while the president is standing right there inside that dome beneath the first Osiris, right, the first president, and that heaven. Right below that, guess what there are? There are 72 pentagrams that form a circle beneath the apotheosis of Washington. And our good friend Derek Gilbert wrote a whole book on the significance of the number 72. In fact, you had him and Dr. Michael Heiser on your program talking about the 72 cosmocrators, right? That's a generator. That is literally built and established using archaic magic for the very purpose of binding and controlling the 72 fallen angels that they believe still magistrate the kingdoms of the earth. And that's where our president is standing, facing the obelisk. I mean, we can go into all this if you want, but this is right out of ancient Egypt. It's the same thing the Pharaoh did. He stood inside the pregnant belly temple of Isis while they conducted the raising of Osiris ceremony, while he's observing the large obelisk on the outside. There's a reason that Washington, D.C. has the largest obelisk of its kind in the world. 6,666 inches high and 666 inches long along each line at the base, right? There's a reason why all of it was engineered exactly the way it was. Well, the secret destiny of America is looking forward to the culmination of the prophecy on the Great Seal of the United States when a U.S. president is going to become the embodiment of the god Apollo. Again, you know, we mentioned Paul saying that Antichrist will be the son of Apollo, the son of perdition. Revelation 17:8, and the beast will rise up out of the bottomless pit and go into Apollo. And this is, the people in this room together with me, we carry on our person the prophecy of the coming of Antichrist more often than we carry a Bible as Americans, because we have the prophecy on the Great Seal in our wallets and purses almost all the time. Right? So it had a specific design behind it. And so once again, not to keep beating this drum, what we found in the WikiLeaks is there are true believers. Some people may just look at it and say, well, it was part of our history, and these fraternity guys, you know, got together and thought they were doing some kind of magic spell. But there are other people that are true believers. They are actively right now performing incantations to try to bring about the arrival of Antichrist, the rise of the spirit of Apollo, who will take its rightful place in a man they believe will be the king of planet Earth, but who we would call, and who the Bible calls, the Antichrist. That's why they hate everything Trump was saying before the election. That's why they despise all this talk about you're going to have Christian leaders that are going to be providing you counsel. We can't have this. You've got to go down. We got to get rid of you. Right?
Got to be going crazy.
And we're not going to kill our babies anymore.
Right.
That's as satanic as there is on earth. I believe we're in the era, the period of time where Antichrist is going to be, I think he's already perhaps on earth. I don't know. But I believe we're in this period of time. I believe we're further down the line than what people believe. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. And think of this spooky thought.
Give it to us, Tom. Wow.
I am, and by the way, there's a lot in Saboteurs on this one thing. I am convinced that the people around Hillary Clinton believe that she is the fulfillment of sex magic rituals called the Babalon Working that were conducted in the 1940s. There are a lot, first of all, because they're practicing the same magic that Jack Parsons, the founder of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the Church of Scientology, when they were conducting the Babalon Working in 1946 for one purpose, to bring through a dimensional veil the whore of Babylon, the spirit of Babylon. Now, I'm not telling you that I'm not saying she is the whore of Babylon. I'm saying people around her were practicing the same magic and are true believers, and they are very aware. They're more aware than I am of the Babalon Working, right? He said in 1948, now 69 years ago, he wrote this. He said, the spirit of this child, as 1 year of age, the spirit of this child came to him, said, I'm on earth, I'm doing well, I will grow up to help the Antichrist come to power, right? But in one line in Book of the Antichrist, she also gave him her name. She said, my name is Hilarion, which is the arcane where the name Hillary comes from. It's the mystical name for Hillary. So tell me how 69 years ago, at 1 year of age, some of all the names that could have been named, right?
Yes.
But remember, I mean, that was really kind of a consistent thread of thought that the Antichrist would lead a socialist world order. It'd be a Marxist socialist kind of platform. You couldn't have even imagined back then that America, now polling shows that almost half of all Americans prefer socialism over free market capitalism.
Yeah.
We couldn't even imagine that to be true, right?
No.
So now imagine in 2020, when Hillary is, guess what? 72 years of age, the highest occult number in all of arcane magic, right?
Yeah.
Throwing her clout maybe as a VP behind Bernie Sanders, right?
Well, I don't know who she hates more right now, Bernie or Trump.
Oh, these people, I don't care what they say. They'll sell their soul on a dime if they can become part of the magisterium, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Don't go away. We'll be right back after this special message.